Hi, my name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And we're the hosts of The Pint,
a pop culture podcast.
Lloyd, if you had to tell any of the people out there that might be listening to The Pint for the first time about anything unsavory or disconcerting we might do on the show, what would you warn them about?
Well, sometimes we drop spoilers, and sometimes we swear like motherfucking sailors.
Fuck yeah, we do. You heard it from him. You've been warned.
Listen in.
James?
Yeah, I'm here. Christ, I'm gone. Oh, shit. Is Andre okay?
Yeah, he's okay. I'm sorry, James.
Welcome to December 2025. Here on The Pint, it's December in the Stars, all month long here and on our Pint Insider on Patreon, Patreon/The Pint. Go check it out if you're not a member. We're going to be talking about movies that take place predominantly in outer space. And we're kicking this month off with a request that is so old from one of our insiders that I'm kind of embarrassed. We'll talk about that in a second. My name is John.
And I am Mike, a.k.a. Bubs Meanie, for those keeping score at home. I have about 7 different names that I go by, but Bubs Meanie is the current one. Mike is the real one. How are you, John?
I'm good. Let's talk about this request and how it came about. So Chris Ramirez is one of our earliest Pint Insiders, and Chris asked us to do this movie, I would say 3 years ago.
Oh.
I watched this movie 3 years ago. I looked it up on Letterboxd because I keep a very tight Letterboxd. And in August of 2022, I watched this movie. Now, here's me thinking out loud. August of 2022 was around the time the Manster was getting divorced and was off the show for a little bit. So I feel like we planned on doing this, and maybe it just kind of fell by the wayside because he was off the show for a little bit. But in either case, I watched this movie in August of 2022. Well, I've been thinking about it and owe it to Chris, and I just finally said, I kind of built this month around it. I said, I got to get this Europa Report, which is the name of the movie, out for Chris. And it's an outer space film. I said, why don't I just do a bunch of space movies? And it will force my hand. If I do a bunch of space movies and don't do the one that this super awesome dude asked us to do 3 years ago, then I am truly not a caring and attentive podcast Patreon host. And I said, so let's do it. Let's not only just do it, let's do it to kick the fucking month off. So I said, Mike, Manster is going to be away towards the end of the month at a destination wedding in New Orleans. I said, So it's going to be hard to wrangle him. So let's kick this off. And I said, we haven't seen Mike since we were hanging out at Lake Placid in the summertime. Why don't we go from Lake Placid to fucking outer space, and let's talk about 2013's Europa Report.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Had you ever heard of this movie before, Mike?
I had never heard of this movie. That being said, I'm not going to spoil too much here, but I'm going to say, even though it took place near and around a moon of Jupiter, much more realistic than Lake Placid ever was.
True. Yeah. True. Even what happens at the very end of this movie, a little bit more realistic than most of Lake Placid.
Sure.
Europa Report, if, by the way, you want to watch Europa Report, it's on Tubi.
It's also on Hulu at the moment.
Oh, okay. I watched it on Tubi. But that's good to know. So by the time this comes out a couple weeks after we record it, hopefully it's still on one of those two spots. Released on video on demand on June 27th of 2013. Released theatrically, minorly, on August 2nd of 2013. Directed by a guy named Sebastian Cordero, an Ecuadorian filmmaker. He made an Ecuadorian film called Chronicas, Such is Life, In the Tropics, and a movie called Behind the Mist. Behind the Mist is a documentary he made. So there was a gentleman named Ivan Vallejo, who was the first Ecuadorian to crown or summit Mount Everest in 1999. He wanted to do it again, and he wanted to chronicle it, so he got the director of this film, Sebastian Cordero, to do it with him. Now, I did not read about the results, so I don't know if they were able to summit it again, but it's apparently a documentary about their journey for him to do this the second time. This film was written by a guy named Philip Gillat. He did 21 episodes of a Netflix show that I've heard of and never seen called Love, Death, and Robots. And then a couple of very small budget movies, Gray Matter and They Remain. So very independent, some independent names there. It was filmed between November and December of 2011 at Cinemagic Studios in Brooklyn, New York. Everything in this movie was filmed on set at that studio. All of the spaceship shots are all computer graphics. All of that is all computer graphics. All the shots of the planets are computer graphics. And they feigned weightlessness by using wires and balance balls. So I didn't read anything into how they did that. Maybe they used balance balls and erased them digitally somehow. But there's a couple scenes, because obviously this movie takes place in space, and they have a pretty solid reasoning why they're not weightless at all times. There's different parts of the ship, and some of them are where the G-forces go to zero and you float. And we get a couple scenes of that, but I think that's pretty cool. So that is pretty much the production information I have on this movie. I could not find any budget information on it. I checked a couple different places. Did you see anything, Mike?
The only thing I heard is it was very low budget.
Yeah.
was the concept. And just the way it was shot was obviously very low budget. We'll get into that. But yeah, I was an interesting concept for a movie, I thought.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, it mostly usually, I guess, used in the horror genre, but this is a found footage film, essentially, right? Like there's some talking heads bits, and then the rest of it is found footage from this mission. So, all right, let's get into the cast.
Round up the usual suspects.
All right, so Anna Maria Marina plays Rosa Dask. She is one of the flight crew. She's the pilot of the ship. She was in the Scarlett Johansson film where she got a lot of shit for playing a Japanese character, Ghost in the Shell. She was in the Netflix movie The Old Guard, and she was in Fury, the World War II tank film. Michael Nyquist plays Andre Block. He was the villain in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. He was in John Wick, and he was in The Girl with the Dragon's Tattoo, that trilogy of European films, not the remake over here. He was in those movies. He died in 2015, I believe. And he is the older of the two engineers in this film. Carolina Widra plays Katya Petrova. She is one of the science officers. Be Kind Rewind, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on television, and a show called, or a movie called After.
And I have to add, she was also Mara in season 5 of Justified. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, because I knew I kept looking. I only recognized like 3 people in this movie, and she was one of them. I was like, where do I know her from? And that's actually how I found out about Europa Report. I'd never heard of it until I rewatched the entire, all 6 seasons of Justified within the last 3 months. And when I was like, who is this lady? So I looked her up, and it was like, she played in Europa Report. And then I was watching Europa Report, and I was like, who is this lady? And then I looked her up. She played in Justified. So it was the dumbest circular reference. I couldn't think of it, but I was like, oh, yeah. So I had to throw that out there. Justified, my favorite show of all time. Had to give it a plug here.
Let's see. Daniel Wu plays William Zhu, the captain of the ship. He was in the 2018 Tomb Raider remake or reboot. He was in Love Hurts, which came out this year. And he was in Geostorm. Here's the guy that you know, if you've seen this movie. Here's the guy that you know. Sharlto Copley.
No, that wasn't the guy I was thinking of. I was thinking of Isaiah Whitlock's in this from The Wire.
He right. And I didn't even write him down here because I did.
Shit.
I did the cast before. He has one line in this whole movie.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's the shit guy. I looked at him when I went, because I saw this years ago, but I watched what I watched of The Wire after. So I'm like, oh, I know this guy. And then I'm waiting for him to talk, and he has one line. I'm like, that seems so odd. The guy I'm talking about, Sharlto Copley, who plays engineer James Corrigan, District 9. He was the lead character in that. He was in the American remake of Old Boy, and he was Howlin' Mad Murdoch in the A-Team movie. Two more. Embeth Davidtz plays Dr. Dr. Unger. Army of Darkness. Give me some sugar. That's her. She was in Schindler's List, and she was in the M. Night Shyamalan movie Old. And then finally, another one who's a very recognizable face and he's got more than 2 lines, but it's Dan Fogler, a.k.a. the poor man's Jack Black, as Dr. Sokolov, one of the talking heads. You know him from the television show The Goldbergs and the ping pong action comedy Balls of Fury. That's probably where you know him from. Yeah, it is weird that he only has that one scene in this movie. All right, let's talk about the movie. So we find out that, I don't know if it's supposed to be in the future or a little bit in the future, but we have kind of like this world conglomerate, space force that comes together, and they pick the best of the best from around the world, probably NASA and China, and they are going to go and check out the moon of Jupiter, Europa.
It's funny you mentioned that you thought it was in the future. I just assumed it was in the past because nobody's working in the United States anymore. So that's
well, when this was made, we were still okay. So so we put them together, and Mike, kind of explain the mission in terms of how the talking heads are talking about it. What happened with this mission of what we know before we get the footage?
You know what? This is one part I'm a little fuzzy on. I do know they had the big press conference and then they're talking. It's to catch everybody up. Pretty much like, again, it's a lost footage, but it's kind of a documentary that documents the lost footage. So it's moving around quite a bit.
Right.
Ultimately, at the very beginning, we know they kind of said that this Europa mission happened, and they find this footage, and it's just a recap of it. As far as I know they interviewed the people before they went on the mission, and everybody's excited, et cetera, et cetera. And then, I'm gonna let you have to fill this in because I'm a little bit, because of the way the movie works. I'm usually relatively good about keep taking a handful of notes along the way. This one was one where I kept looking for something like notes to take, and it was hard to grasp. So yeah, I didn't really get any notes on this one, and my memory is shot most of the time. So I'm beer addled at this point in my life.
Here is a kind of rundown of, if you want to make it a little bit more linear. We have the talking heads in the beginning, the doctors and the scientists that put this mission together. $37 billion mission to go to Jupiter and its moon of Europa, which they have found evidence of lakes that are under this frozen tundra of a planet. And as they say, whenever you have evidence of water, there's life to be found. So this is why they're sending these people out there. It is going to take, I think when we finally get there, I think it's 22 months is like the time period.
It'll be 4 years overall. So it kind of holds. Yeah.
Right. Back and forth. Right. And we get to see this time in a pretty interesting way of this movie is a lot of footage of the cameras on the ship. That's mostly how we see everything, and everything's time stamped. We see different camera angles, tells you if you're in camera 1, camera 2, if you're in the living quarters, all that stuff. But then we also find out, like Mike said, we get the interviews with some of the astronauts and why, it's essentially just astronaut interview stuff where it's like, I'm doing this because as a kid, I dreamed of going and finding what's out there, the answers as to the tough questions of why are we here. But then we also find out that at one point they had lost communication with this ship. Now, when we go on the ship, we kind of move around also in time from the first couple days of their mission where it's kind of everybody, still getting, everybody gets along, but still just the newness of being in space and taking videos to send their kids at home. But then we also kind of go to some footage where something has happened and they reference that somebody has died. Now, if you're paying attention to the movie, you can tell it's the Sharlto Copley character is not in any of these scenes. Yeah. And something's happened to him. He's died. The older engineer seems to be on like a medical watch or a suicide watch of some sort. Like we get some little yammering back and forth between other characters that they don't know if he's like able to be trusted by himself in a segment of the ship. Who knows what he's going to do.
I will say this. I went into this movie, and without spoiling my entire thoughts on the movie, I'm going to give you an idea of where I'm heading with this. I went into this movie expecting to be completely bored by this premise. But the intro was very obligatory, like you said. They have a mission, they're going to Europa, and something happened, and then they found the footage, they're reviewing the footage again. James, I think, is the one. He's kind of like the one they show at first, and you're getting friendly with him, and he's got the camera, he's being friendly, he's trying to goof around. Then all of a sudden he's just gone. And the other guy's like you said, he's in tatters. And I'm like, you know what? I have no reason to be invested in this movie at this point. But I am. I really do think at least they do a very good job initially. And for some reason, I think the lost footage aspect works with this, with the 4 cameras and the handhelds. But it's very much like you feel like you're part of this. You feel like if you suspend your belief in this, which is hard to do in Lake Placid and Escape from LA. But in this, it was very easy to suspend your belief and go, okay, or disbelief, and then go, I can get into this. So, I mean, I'm wondering, okay, I know the guy's most likely dead unless they pull a big swerve, which just didn't feel like that kind of film. It felt a very, very straightforward film. And it was most of the time. It gave you almost what you expected, which was 100% fine. But yeah, I was instantly, okay, I've got, an hour and 10 minutes left of this movie, and I'm excited to see how this resolves. So yeah, I thought they did a really good job of quickly turning this documentary into something that you were interested in.
Right. And the talking heads in the beginning, Dr. Unger and the Dan Fogler character, Dr. Unger in particular, makes it clear that what they're talking about in this documentary and interview is going to be about all of the footage that was lost on this mission from the time that they lost communication. So as they're heading out to to Jupiter and its moons, there's a solar flare. We see a solar flare, and it knocks out communications equipment. Now, I think, if I'm correct, this was either 6 months or 9 months into their mission. It was very early into their mission. So
6, I believe, yeah.
6 months. So they lose communication from 6 months, and they don't get back to restoring their communication until the 22-month mark when everything is going wrong. Mm-hmm. And all of this information is sent back at one time. And that feeds heavily into how this movie ends. So they lose their communication, and the 2 engineer characters end up going on a spacewalk to fix this. They're basically find out that one of the motherboards for their communication system is fried, and they're trying to change it out. As they're changing it out, though, what happens? Do they end up? I can't remember. Oh, the bolts are stuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Motherboard's stuck. So yeah,
the motherboard's stuck, and when they finally are able to dislodge it, it rips the suit of the older engineer's character's glove. So Mike, he is now in distress, right?
Yeah, he's definitely losing air fast. You can see his glove, it's shooting air left and right. And it's funny because this is when I'm like, I'm not sure that this is going to work out this way in real life. I don't know the science behind it. He's trying to hold it with his hand. I guess it's like, what's your option? And he's still kind of holding it together. They're trying to get him back to the airlock. They're realizing, hey, I realized, we got to get this guy in the airlock to save his life. But then the other guy, come to find out, he got hydrazine all over himself, which apparently is poisonous. So if he goes in the airlock, he's going to kill everybody on the ship. So now it becomes a whole problem. So it becomes this kind of like, what do we do? And this is the kind of the first, I guess, conflict might be the wrong word, but this is the first, how are we going to resolve this issue? Because we've got person X that needs to be saved. Person Y can't really save him very efficiently. So how are they going to resolve it?
Yeah. Yeah. Block has to be pushed into the airlock and repressurize. He's bleeding. He's losing oxygen. He's dying basically. And Corrigan has this hydrazine, which when I was reading the, reviewing this movie in terms of some of the, hold on, my dog needs to get out of the room. My dog's deathly afraid of the cable that I use and he won't go past it.
This is the recurring theme of this show I love so much, is your dog being afraid of that cable.
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh, so you've been here for this before. Okay, yeah. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, so doing the research in this episode, that hydrazine is a real thing they used and or still use on like rocket ships. And I didn't read whether or not it's actually truly poisonous, but it is a liquid that's used in the cooling process, I guess.
Yeah.
And he can't get in. If he goes in, as you said, the air system will pull that stuff in and it will suffocate everybody. It'll poison everybody.
My guess would be, even if the hydrazine itself isn't so dangerous, I'm going to guess that every bit of that ship is so kind of like well managed to such a small degree that any kind of element that is unexpected, could cause this problem. Again, I don't know that, but yeah, if you're going to go from the, believability, trying to keep that atmosphere for 24 months one way and 24 months the other way proper, I'm sure that anything introduced is going to screw it up.
So here's the definition of hydrazine from Wikipedia, which can be changed by people, so don't at me.
Better than Grokpedia.
Hydrazine is an inorganic compound with the chemical formula of N2H4. It is a simple pnictogen hydride and is a colorless, flammable liquid with an ammonia-like odor. Hydrazine is highly hazardous unless handled in solution as, for example, hydrazine hydrate N2H4 times H2O. Mostly used as a foaming agent in preparing polymer foams, blah, blah, blah. But the idea is that he can't go back in because, as we said, the sterile environment, poisonous, all that stuff. Now, they've also hammered it home that this is a family guy. He's got a little kid at the very least. So, and it's also Sharlto Copley, who, who's a good actor. I felt like, you actually felt for him because you see this guy do something heroic and then essentially come to the grips of the fact that he is living his last 10 minutes of life, if anything. He pushes Block into the airlock. They automatically shut it. And then we get on the bridge of the ship, one of the science officers is like, well, we can go and pick him up. And the captain is very much like, no, we can't. There's nothing we could do.
What are we going to do? Drag him behind us for the next, there's nothing to do with this cat.
Put him on the roof like the Griswold's grandma, the dog. You can't, drag him behind, whatever. You can't do any of that. So he kind of just pushes off and floats away, and we get this POV shot inside his helmet as he is just slowly dying. I think it's a really strong scene is when Andre Block wakes up in the airlock and just starts screaming. Yeah. Because what he just, he's alive, this other guy's not. They were very friendly. And it's not said, but he's an older guy. Probably, no younger kids or anything, and Corrigan was. So this is what sets us up to see how a lot more of this mission now is compromised by the fact that now they're only down to one engineer and they've lost a person, which brings the morale down severely. And then you realize they even say it at whatever point he dies, they still have a year and a half before they even get there.
Right.
So
yeah.
It's not like it happened 18 months out. So that happens, and then we then see how they are interacting with Block and worried about his mental abilities or if he's fracturing or not.
They kind of made an executive decision because they lost communication, they lost a guy, and they're like, I think at this point they were discussing even going back to Earth.
Right.
And turning the thing around, but they decided to continue going, which was a pretty baller move. I'll give them that.
Yeah, with that many months left. So they fly out, and we eventually end up in Europa. They land on this massive ice moon, and essentially from here to the end of the movie, it's just more and more a case of what kind of is going wrong, how nothing is really going right for them. But one of the first things they do is they start drilling, right?
Well, they missed their landing site. So that was part of it, because initially they planned on landing in an area where they could take samples relatively easily, but because of the way, they landed about 100 yards away from the original landing site, and where they landed, it was the ice was a lot thicker. So They couldn't get the samples they needed. So they had one of a couple choices. Should they do a walk and try to get the samples? That was ruled out initially. And they decided, let's drill here and see what we can find.
Right. So they drill, they send a probe down, and then we get some shots as they eventually break through to the point where they end up through the ice and into the water of the probe kind of going through. And, they're talking about how the sunlight is coming through the ice, and that means the ice isn't as thick as they thought, and all science jargon here and there. But then the camera on the probe picks up like a light of some sort under them, a couple of times. And then eventually I can't remember if they get it out because they're getting samples or if the light attacks or at least collides with the probe, correct?
Yeah. Kind of a callback to when they first landed and they're kind of looking out the window as they're going down. Block initially sees a light in the distance. And of course, Block's admitted at this point. I don't know if he's had insomnia for a year and 4 months at this point, or however long since his last little encounter. But yeah, nobody trusts this guy. Not that they don't trust him as a human being, but yeah, they're like, the guy's not sleeping. He's still kind of mentally fragile, it appears. But he's seen something off in the distance, a light of some sort. They dismiss it by and large, and then the light again, a secondary light, potentially, quote unquote, attacks or at least collides with their cameras. So yeah, they can no longer get the samples they were hoping to obtain at this point.
Right. And they discuss, I think at this point again, whether they should leave or stay. And there's been a few times where the female science officer has been like, I'll go take a walk out there. Mm-hmm. And they're like, look, the ice is treacherous. We don't want to do that unless it's like last ditch effort for us to get this. And it becomes a last-ditch effort. Now, I can't remember, did the probe come out with the samples and she just had to retrieve them, or did she have to go and drill for more samples?
She was getting brand new samples, yeah. So
right.
She actually, because the probe was like the 100 feet deep.
Right.
She went ahead, and it wasn't a matter of, I'm going to go get the samples. She's like, I'm going to walk over to the old site, and I'm going to get samples. So, yeah, she ends up walking like 100 meters to the old site so she can get the easy samples. Because that was an initial discussion, too, is like, can I get the samples here? And they're like, you're not going to get them on the surface because she's going to be on the surface of they need to be closer to like the, whatever. So, but yeah, she made a real decision that, hey, I'm going to walk this 100 meters and let's go back over to where we were or where we were supposed to land in the first place.
Yep. And she does get the samples, which are, again, because it's in the original place, easier for them to get. And as she's getting the samples, she's kind of setting them up with equipment that they can read back on the ship. And as she's setting them up, they see that in the samples, there's like a single-celled organism, which is, they basically say equivalent to like an algae or a plankton or something like that. But what does that mean, Mike?
Well, it means there's life on Europa.
Right. So this is too big for them to ignore. There's life on Europa. But things quickly, after she sends them back the information, go wrong for her, Mike. What ends up happening?
Well, initially, it's kind of I won't call it a bait and switch, but they let you know that she is on limited air. Radiation is an issue, and they just happen to catch it at a point where the radiation was low enough for her to do this, but the radiation is rising quickly, and she wants to do more samples, but they finally decide, they're like, hey, you know what? You got your samples, and she's feeling like I think even the rumble in her, you can hear it underneath, and they're like, yeah, the radiation's getting too high. You got to get back to the boat, and suddenly there's again all kinds of crazy shit happens. There's kind of like cracking, and then all of a sudden she just falls through the ice, and yeah, you can actually. It's kind of really sad. This is a part that I think was better done than I expected the way it was done, because the way I'm going to explain is you're going to sound like that sounds really cheesy, but the way it was actually pulled off, I thought was pretty effective, because you have to remember she's 100 meters away or 100 yards away from the ship. So they really can't see her. She's walked too far to actually see, and they've lost communication, and her camera's on, but then it's kind of off, but they lost communication, but they can see that she's actually in their little visual, they don't have a visual of her, but they have like a mechanical visual of like where she is on the ice, and she's on the surface of the ice, and she's slowly falling to the bottom of the ice. And you're like, again, it sounds cheesy. It's like, why would that work? But I think when you're in that situation and you spent 22 months to get to this location, and you've actually done exactly what you set out to do, and you're this, and here's the person that risk life and limb to go out and do it, and to see them, pretty much to not actually see them, but pretty much know that, they risk themselves for our mission and for our cause. That was, that felt a little stronger than it had any right to be. But I think what I liked about it was they kept going back to her, and she actually, you could tell on the last shot I think you get of her is that she can definitely see something in the water.
Right.
It's not just a matter of, I fell through the water. She fell through the water for a reason. The ice was cracking, but it was cracking because it was being hit.
And it's well done, especially for a movie that doesn't have a large budget, even though we don't know what it is. It's not a large budget, because the shot of her sinking in the water, besides using like the tracker on the ship, is just a shot inside of her helmet with her face. Mm-hmm. You never even see liquid, but you could just tell by the way they're shooting it that she's descending, and she's also like in marvel of something. And I think if I'm correct, I think you might see like some luminescence light up her helmet, the glass as well. Yeah. But yeah, it is a well done shot, but she's gone. She's gone. And now we're down to, our engineer Block, the male science officer, the captain Zoo, and Rosa, the pilot. Mm-hmm. And they are pretty much, talking about, this is it. We have to go. Right.
Yeah, probably a pretty good decision at this point.
Right. We have no communication with Earth. We've lost 2 people at this point. And one of us is pretty compromised and Block. He's not like, necessarily thinking straight.
And he's really, now he's the only engineer. He's been the only engineer since, 6 months in. So yeah, and he's, sketchy at best. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. They knew they were in kind of trouble. So Mike, they decide that they're going to take off, and they're also concerned because they know that the ice is starting to break underneath them. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they all get in their places. They all decide this is the point where we're going to try to take off. So they all get in their places. They decide to take off. And as they take off, everything goes wrong. Like nothing is working the way it should. Right. Their booster rockets aren't working correctly, but they do get high enough into the air that it's not going to be good if they crash down.
Right. Yeah. They were in that kind of shitty spot where they had gotten too high to just, hey, let's go back and let's start over. Let's do something. And they're not going to get any further because their engine's all jacked.
So the way that this ship is set up is the cockpit is like the upper half, and then there is a door, and then the engineers and the science officers sit in a section towards the bottom. So just picture it that way. The 2 pilots are in the top, the captain and Rosa. They take off. Everything's going wrong. And the captain basically says, I have to, he's going to go and, I think what he does is he, drops like the water shielding,
mm-hmm.
The radiation shielding, which will help them land softer somehow. I'm not a pilot or an engineer, but that's what he does. Well, he does do that, but he has to get out of his seat to release that stuff. So he's not buckled in. So when they do finally hit, he fucking eats shit.
Yeah.
It's good. It's a good scene because he just goes flipping through the air and hits the wall.
Yeah, he was like Cactus Jack style off the top of the cage, man. It was not a pretty event.
It is not a question. So after they land and Block and the male science officer and Rosa kind of come out of their stupor, they go to check him, and I'm like, why are you even checking him? This guy is flattened out. So they all get up, and now they know that there's not much more they can do. The ice is breaking through. They're sinking through. This is kind of like a last ditch effort. But they know that they can probably work on the ship and maybe get them out again, but it's going to take 2 people to do it, Mike. So the 2 engineers go out. What happens, when they decide to step out?
Well, pretty much they step out and they've agreed, hey, I think part of a line is frozen, and there's discussion about how they're going to resolve it. But it's as soon as I think Luxembourg, I think that's the name of the other guy. It's as soon as he walks out, I think he just falls through the ice and dies. Yeah. He's just gone. So it's okay, now we've got Block and him, and I think it comes down to an effect now. It's the repair they were going to do to get the ship up in the air is not going to happen. It's impossible at this point. But Block has come to a conclusion that, it's getting cold. We're losing air. We're going to die. But I can at least repair the communication system before before we all pretty much die. So the theory is they're still like red pilled on getting this fucking mission done, or at least getting something back to Earth. So he's thinking, you know what? Instead of fixing the actual blasters and getting out of here, that's an impossibility now. Why don't I go ahead and fix the communication system so we can send something back to Earth and let them know what the hell happened?
Right. And he does. He succeeds. And then we go back to the interview in the documentary, and they talk about how the Dr. Unger character at 3 a.m. got notification that all of a sudden communication completely came back from the Europa 1 mission. Everything that they haven't seen in the last year and a half just has been flooding back to Earth. And
I think one thing they did to kind of like before that happens or as it's happening, they kind of lead in. You still kind of know what's going to happen, but Rosa, during the time that they're off, because she needs to stay just to blast off, etc., or however she's going to try to get the thing started. They didn't want her to help because she's not an engineer or anything to begin with. So there's 3 people's not going to help any more than 2, but they wanted her with the ship. So that's when she decides to shoot parts of this documentary. So you're actually getting like her taking like video of herself. And they do a clever, it's not super clever, but it does make you a will it, won't it, where they're splicing the video in at times that show where she's talking almost like she survived this whole ordeal.
Yeah.
You get the impression she probably didn't, but it's never really stated until it's stated.
Right. You're right. There are bits of the documentary where you're like, she's the only one that's talking about everything that happened in a past tense, but that's because she's the last person she's the last one to go. Right. Block ends up fixing the communications, but he ends up getting killed outside of the ship, right?
Yeah, I think he goes under the ice too, I'm pretty sure.
Right. But Rosa also starts to see like kind of this light again, this bioluminescence. So
the water's spilling in.
Yeah. So she opens the door to let the water in because she knows she's not going to survive. And she feels like, besides the fact that she's going to be able to send them the information of this one-celled organism, she feels like there's a good chance that she might be able to document something else. And this is actually, I think, a really great ending. She gets up into the cockpit, it's shot from above her. You see her, she's scared. She opens up the door as the ship is sinking into the water. The ice starts flooding in below her. You see it start flooding in. And as the cabin fills up, you see these like ethereal, like blue bioluminescent lights coming up from below. And then the last thing you see after the cabin fills up and we assume that she's drowned or drowning, we see this creature, this octopus, squid, Jupiter fucking creature. And it's clear. It's not like, what I liked about it was, it wasn't like we just saw maybe a tentacle and a light where like the people on Earth are going to be like, maybe there is life on Jupiter. It's a fucking glow in the dark squid octopus, 100%. They show it, it comes up, and then the footage gets knocked out. And we go back to the end of the documentary where Dr. Unger is talking about how, they definitively found out the answer, that there is life out there in the universe. And I thought that was refreshing for a movie not to be coy, like with their final answer. You know what I mean? Like, we saw, they were coy when they went in with the probe and they saw a light and the probe got knocked out. That could have been a lot of things. It could have been a piece of ice. It could have been something else, but they give us an answer at the end of this movie, right? They give us an answer.
I think it's important. And again, there's opinions are going to vary on this, but as they did on the internet, because I looked actually before the podcast tonight and I was like, I wonder how this was reviewed historically, especially on the Reddits, etc. And by and large, as you mentioned, Letterboxd, this was like the perfectly evenly rated Letterboxd movie. It's like a whole bunch of 6s, 5s, and it looked like the perfect bell curve of a Letterboxd movie. But I started reading reviews, and some people had a problem with that ending, and they said, well, it shouldn't have kind of given it away. It should have left it hanging. And I'm in your opinion, I'm in your camp in a way that this was such a different style movie. It's hard to pull these suckers off. It's hard to pull off kind of the lost footage documentary, get invested kind of thing. And I think, again, you can tell I'm probably feeling pretty positive about this. But I think it did need that closure, because I think if it ends with that kind of like, well, was it? We don't know. We found out about some algae, but did they or didn't they? But, really, it's like up until that point, we had a pretty good suspicion that there was a creature causing a lot of this. The radiation, the crackages, it sounded like things were getting attacked. It sounded like, but there was no definitiveness. And it's like, I think it did. Some movies benefit from having that kind of hanging question mark. I think this is one that needed a bow tied on it, because there's not going to be another version of this. There's not going to be a second, version, a conclusion, however. So yeah, I think tying it up, letting us see, this fucker exists and he's been the problem all along. And then, kind of letting the mission, because all 6 of these guys, the thing you say about the mission, there was a lot of quote unquote bravery. Everyone was highly invested. I felt like, for the sake of feeling good about the character development and the character arc, they needed to finish the mission. And the mission wasn't finished until we knew that there was really a critter out there.
Yeah. They didn't die for nothing. Like they were able to get a sample that proved that there was some life. And then they were able to send video back that proved that there was more than just single cell organism. And, in some movies, the movies end where, it's a down note, and it works a lot of times for me. I will say that this movie in particular, with everything they had gone through and with losing everybody in the way they did, I felt like it was a nicely earned final bit.
It was a tragedy porn on a lot of levels here. I mean, it wasn't a lot of happiness that went through the vein of this movie. So to me, that kind of, to know that at least there was success, at least they didn't die in vain, and you felt like there was some happiness. Nobody needs a movie where nothing good happens.
Right.
So
a little anti-misery porn never hurt anybody. All right. So that's 2013's Europa Report. Let's talk about the mostly non-existent box office.
So I'm talking about fractions of a penny here. And over time, they add up to a lot.
All right. So if we're going to go with the weekend of August 2nd through the 4th of 2013, here's your top 5 films. Spoiler alert, Europa Report ain't in there. Number 5, it had been out for 5 weeks. It made $10.1 million. Despicable Me 2. I have never seen any of those films. But that tracks. I don't have kids. And number 4, it was out for 3 weeks. It made $13 million. The first Conjuring. Number 3, released that week, $17.5 million. The Smurfs 2.
Nice.
The Smurfs 2. Number 2, out for 2 weeks, a Marvel film, a sequel, but not an MCU film. $21.3 million. The wholly forgettable The Wolverine. Do you remember that one, Mike, where he's in Japan? You don't.
I have not seen it. No,
I have. I don't remember it. It's wholly forgettable. That's a series that, like, the third movie I love, Logan. The first 2 are just completely flushable. And then opening at number 1, it made $27 million. This was Mark Wahlberg and Denzel Washington. I've never seen this. Two Guns, but that's also a comic film, I believe. I think it's like a Dark Horse property of some sort. If you want to talk about Europa Report, you got to scroll way down on Box Office Mojo to the number 56 slot.
Ooh.
It made $22.2 million or $22,200, pardon me. Europa Report and its overall gross, domestically owned worldwide, I guess there was no international release, was $125,000.
So what finished ahead of it that week? Right, immediately ahead of it.
Immediately ahead of it. Let's see here. Okay, so 56. So at 55 was The Bling Ring.
Oh, The Bling Ring. There we go.
If you want to go up a couple spots to, Jesus, I don't know any of these movies. Yeah, I can. Okay, so if you want to go one more spot, Francis Ha, To the Arctic 3D, Fill the Void, which I think is a channel on Pornhub that I frequent once in a while. I don't know. Space Station 3D, Hannah Arendt. Nobody's ever heard of any of these movies, and they all beat Europa Report. But that's okay, because we did this for our Pint Insider, Chris Ramirez, who we love very much. And yeah, so let's rate this thing.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
It was fun.
0 being the worst thing ever, 5 being the best thing ever, quarter and half scale optional. Bubs Meany, I'm going to let you go first. What do you give 2013's Europa Report here on December in the Stars, where we're doing all space movies all month long?
I think I probably gave Lake Placid in hindsight a little higher than I wanted to, but I really feel comfortable giving this a solid 3.5. I think it's good enough. I think it performed. It did what it set out to do. It felt like a documentary. They were very ambitious about the way it was shot. It held true to itself. The nice thing about it, and this is where some people may argue otherwise, there wasn't tons and tons of character development. There was a little bit, but it was mainly just bravery, and we're going to go out of it. But there shouldn't be, because this is a documentary film that's literally documenting what happened. You're not going to have a lot of, oh, well, he's really in love with her. And it's very much straightforward. It's a factual film. It's shot like a documentary. It's meant to play like a documentary. It plays like a documentary. Like I said, I didn't expect to enjoy it very much. I expected to give it like a 2, or, I was like, this is going to be average at best, bad at best, but I was invested in it. I actually recommended it to my wife because she's a bit of a sci-fi nerd. And I was like, I could see you liking this. I think if you go in not knowing I'd never heard about it. I didn't know what the conclusion was, and I was invested. I enjoyed it. And the one thing, as we always say here, an hour and a half.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Almost on the nose.
In and out, baby.
Love it. So, yeah, 3.5.
All right. I'm with you. 3.5. As I said, I watched this once before, so I knew what I was getting into, and I was actually looking forward to watching it again, because the ending of this movie, that final scene with the water rushing in on her and the alien octopus thing kind of rising up has been stuck in my head for years. Like, I remember that. I remember the Sharlto Copley character, like, not being able to go back in the ship and, all that stuff. So there's some memorable stuff in here for sure. It's really low budget. It's well made. Like I said, all of the computer effect stuff of the ship, the cameras looking at different angles of the ship from the inside, the planet, the solar flare, it's all really well done. Mm-hmm. None of it looks cheesy. The practical stuff looks good. They didn't force weightlessness on us so that it got to the point where we were like, oh, this obviously wasn't filmed in like what do they call those? Like a vomit comet. This was filmed like with using practical methods. It looks good because they don't do it a ton. They were able to roll it back. Good actors. All the actors in this were good.
I thought the female actors were exceptional, and the guy who played the Russian guy was really good. The other two guys, I could live without them, but I thought especially the female actors and the Russian guy were excellent, and the captain was pretty good too. The other two guys I didn't care too much about, but yeah, good acting overall.
Yeah. So yeah, I give it a 3.5. This is an enjoyable movie. If you're looking for some cool sci-fi stuff to check out this month, as Mike said, he watched it on Hulu. I watched it on Tubi. Check both places out. Check it out. Thank you again to Chris Ramirez for suggesting this. And I'm sorry it took, I don't know, as long as their fucking mission took for me to
22 months.
So 22 plus like 36 months or so. But, you can't say that we didn't do it. So we did it. Mike, tell everybody out there about anything you got going on.
I'll tell you about 3 things real quick. My blog is at undistinguished.com. I talk about a bunch of tech nerdy shit. I'm on Blue Sky at undistinguished.com. And I also have a Twitch channel for my horse racing game. I'm rewriting the whole thing. It should be done in about April, so don't come until then because it looks like shit right now. But about April should be done. But if you want to usually check me and my buddy out drinking beer and talking a bunch of fake horses, as unexciting as that sounds, come on over to twitch.tv/derbyfever. And we'll have a good time, as good a time as we're going to have.
That's right. Mike, I appreciate you so much. Thanks for coming on.
I forgot to say thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure to be on The Pint. As I always say, it's your favorite podcaster's favorite podcast. You're well loved and received out there in the community. So thank you again for having me on.
Well, we love you here too. I boned you out because I had asked you to do another one, Scanners, which I ended up doing with Stu and this guy, Tommy, that we had met through podcasting. And then I don't know when I figured it out, but I was like, oh shit. It was after we did it. I'm like, I think I had messaged Mike about doing that episode. And, I can't remember having done that to anybody in a while, but I am the most organized, disorganized person. Like, I have like a level of organization, but like, I'm just not like, I don't lock it down. So I'm glad that we were able to do this one, and we'll have you on again very soon.
Excited to be here.
And you know us, we're the Pint, as I said, all month long, December in the stars. We're doing nothing but spacefaring movies. We'll be doing, I'll give you 2 more we're going to do. I'm not going to give them all to you. But over on the Pint Insider, Lloyd and I will be doing 2001 A Space Odyssey, which might be the all-time space movie. And here on the regular feed later in the month, we'll be doing another classic sci-fi film that I've never seen. So I'm psyched about this one from the 70s called Silent Running. Silent Running. So join us and check us out over on YouTube. On Instagram, we're at The Pint Pop. And if you go to Patreon/The Pint, $2.50 a month will get you 2 extra episodes every month. Until next time, see ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!